It was Bohemian Grove's what they call it that. So the reason it's important is the Republicans go there to, like, they ship in all these private hookers, all these jets land nearby, but they also have a lot of gay sex, which they use then to basically compromise people into the cult. And so there's a lot of gay sex.
Well, how do you know this?
I mean, it's a big gay hookup deal for Republicans. I'm just telling you what it is. And then they've got this ritual. So I'm sitting there during the ritual, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. The dude goes, shut up, I'll kill you. And they're all taking it very seriously. And I'm not saying it's a gay thing. I was just quietly going, oh, this is really interesting. And they're like, shut up, this is a very important ritual. And they were taking it very serious. Later, others infiltrated later that worked there and got us photos of it. It's an image of a kid. It's a little kid.
Because Moloch in biblical is who they sacrifice to Canaanite.
It's a bull, but they do it as an owl.
They do it as an owl, yeah. But that's from the Bible, is you would sacrifice a child to Moloch.
Give not your children to the fires of Moloch.
Right.
And
toplobster.com. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they're controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight to be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government released.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. And today we are joined by sort of a long time coming, and I'm happy that we're getting it done, Jose Galisson, which sounds incredibly French. It sounds like a Latin and French mashup. Please, Jose, if you will, for the people who don't know who you are, although I'm sure most of them do, let them know where they can find your work and what it is you focus on.
Yeah, you can find me. I have the No Way Jose podcast. I'm on YouTube, all the major podcatchers, Rumble as well. I do want to point out Vinny Paws fucking slaps. Every fucking time I hear that, I love it so much. At Jose Galisson, completely made up name. I may just have to put my name out there since I kind of don't really have a real job sort of anymore, just like part-time. Like, what am I holding out for anymore? Like, who gives a shit? Like, but we'll go with Jose Galisson for now. It has a nice little flair to it. But yeah, I cover parapolitics is kind of typically what I cover. Although I went with No Way Jose for the podcast name because I had no idea what I wanted to talk about. So I may end up talking about other shit in the future. But for the moment, my show is basically conspiracy, parapolitics, the rare political theory, because I've been bored with political theory for a long time now. After a certain point, you got it down. You're like, what are we still talking about here? That's kind of where I'm at. Now I'm digging into conspiracies and stuff. So we have a lot of crossover. I like to tend to take the receipts, but we're both hunting demons here, but in our own ways, coming at it, scratching at it from different sides of the veil.
I like it. Yeah, it's funny, Jose. The other day, just yesterday, maybe the day before, time is dilated these days because the Nephilim. I don't want to get too deep into it, right? And not too quick. But I was looking through this old hard drive I had with a bunch of old work, and I posted a picture of Nick Fuentes that I drew. But I saw a bunch of shit that I drew for you, like I think it was Konkin. I did a design for that. I found the old designs for Yiki, for all that stuff, and I have to still work on it. I'm just, as I was telling you, I have children that are ruining my life, so it's very hard to do. But so I was just reminiscing on, like, I was like, oh, Jose went through this what is that called? Agorist. Like Agorist, and then like sort of touched on the anarchy, because then I saw all the other work that we did with your.
Let's not do this.
Not today, faggot.
I'm like peripherally aware of some things, and that was a terminology I'm just
agorism is when you sell cats out of your house.
It's basically illegalism, but a little bit more refined. Like, because for those who are familiar with anarchist thought, there is a legalism, which is like we do illegal shit. Although agorism's like the non-retarded version of it, where it's the point isn't to do illegal shit, but it's a point to operate in what's called black or gray markets, which are areas that are like, say for example, like even something as silly as being a waitress, and you get cash
What
tips.
flavor of cats do you
and
sell?
you get cash tips. Do you report those cash tips? Like, who reports the cash tips to the IRS? You're retarded if you report those cash tips to the IRS. That's technically illegal. So you are operating in the gray. It's like a known thing. So it's gray. It's debatable. It's wishy-washy. But it's like kind of living your life like that, to where you can. You skirt around the edges, trying to keep your fucking money where you can, type deal. And it also has like a side thing where typically, like if you're speaking strictly agorism, you don't really believe we're voting our way out of this. We're generally not believers in voters. So like it's a super specific niche label, but it describes me well. Like my politics is that like I generally am like, I'm an anarchist, anarcho-capitalist, but I'm like, I don't think I'm going to vote for fucking Trump or Chase Oliver or Dave Smith, and that's really going to help in the long run. If anything, I think these silly games the electoral games probably fuck us over, which we've talked about Trump in the past, to kind of the idea that he could be the Moshiach or something, and it's like that he's leading the flock astray, and that's kind of, in a certain sense, the larger meta point that like, hey, like this whole thing could go wrong. Like, I mean, hell, let's say Dave Smith ran, and then now like what about the next election? Like now you have this larger apparatus that's even faggier, and then has a Chase Oliver running it, and now it's a Chase Oliver with more oomph behind it, wasting people's time. You know what I mean?
I will say he did call, like, you were one of the first people to tell Dave Smith, right, like pretty much to his face. It was like, hey, whatever you're doing here with the Mises Caucus is going to turn into, you're going to grow it and make it gay. And Dave was like, psh, you don't know what you're talking about.
This is when they were super base too.
Yeah, you got a show called No Way Jose. No one could even find it. And Jose was like, okay, but according to this book by, Conkin
Samuel Edward Conkin the Third.
Yeah, it's like, this is what he said, and this is what you're doing. And then it turns out literally, it's actually hilarious, right? How it turned out exactly gay. And also, like, now his vice president is a cop. So I was like, man, just nailed it. Just nailed the fucking theory and how things are going here.
I like that I got to, because I've always kind of been politically estranged, and I agree with that sentiment, Jose, that it just feels like you're not going to change this by voting. And certainly when you look at this,
I did vote, though. I will say I voted for Trump just because.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's accelerationism, right? I mean, who am I to not vote for the Antichrist? I get it. But, there is certainly this feeling that if there was ever a sentiment that at the highest levels it's political theater, that sentiment is stronger now more than ever, right, with the current situation, although maybe there's an argument for it having been stronger when you had Hillary v. Trump. But I agree with that. And it's just funny that by the time, what up, Donut? By the time I got to see what the Libertarian Party was all about, which, I was invited to Georgia to go see that whole debacle.
Oh, remember that, Jose?
Thanks for sitting in for me, yeah.
You're very welcome. Honestly, you probably
Hey, I had a replacement.
You should have been pumped that you missed it, because it was, there was some really incredible performances by Toad. So there was really some memorable moments there.
Jose, let me tell you the most memorable moment.
I'm still not upset I missed it. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm upset I missed Bohemian Grove. I'm not upset I missed the Georgia one. That would have bored the fuck out of me.
It was a shit show, dude.
Yeah.
It was
garbage.
I kept on looking at the top like, what the fuck did you bring me?
What you missed, Jose, was seeing somebody walk into a libertarian convention for the first time, and not a good libertarian convention. Yes, David walked in, and I didn't warn him about the level of autism. It's kept specifically for this place, and there's a specific type of autism that reigns there, and he got to see it on full. First, he was like, "Who the fuck is that guy pacing in the woods?" And I was like, "Oh, that's Jacob Hornberger. He's a front runner last year."
Yeah, he was loud. He was pacing in the woods, and he was, pretty far away from us, just going back and forth on the tree line, like
talking to himself.
Bigfoot. And he's not talking to himself. He's shouting at himself, and I go, what the fuck is this, dude? We pull up to like a VFW. The whole thing is very strange. You go inside, everybody just looks like shit. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. Everybody looks like shit. There was not an attractive person in that bitch. And I don't know. It was just a very strange experience. And I go, this is what's important. Oh, let's read this. Stinky Sock 420
nice
sent
name.
a $5 donation. Top and Jose are responsible for me not being black-pilled, but also responsible for me realizing everyone is a faggot and libertarianism is retarded. And to that, I would say you guys are doing great work because
Important
I
work.
came away. That was my estimation. That was my whole takeaway. If I had to write on the back of that convention's book, like a quick summary, like this is gay and retarded. That would have been the entire thing. So it was interesting. And I do think there was a part of, you would have enjoyed Toad taking his shoes off.
I would have
calling a
enjoyed
libertarian.
myself. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
That
you
is,
would have
though,
enjoyed
they are
yourself.
my people. Like that little 5-minute stint we did about agorism there. Like I do like if when there are someone who's on my wavelength who likes to talk about shit, I'll sit there and talk with them about it. So I would enjoy that. But I don't know. I guess my vibe lately is more parapolitics or conspiracy or whatever. So Bohemian Grove was disappointing. Also, like I don't know. Like the conventions, they're fun, but they're not like I don't think I'd ever really want to go anything more than like an hour and a half out of my way for one. They're enjoyable, but not that enjoyable. You know what I mean? Like
How
that's
long of a
the
drive
level
was
of
this, Top?
enjoyment I
This
get
was
out
like
of it.
6 hours?
5
6
hours.
5
Yeah.
hours worth of a drive.
Plus a
Oftentimes,
ticket.
I think some of the best experiences come, when you go and you visit some sort of a shit show. And the good news is, speaking of shit shows, we're going to do another Bohemian Grove, probably maybe in like 5 months. So hopefully you can
Oh,
catch
shit.
this one.
Let's
but
fucking
I would
go.
love to know, Jose, like what ushered you, because we come to similar conclusions, but you come through a political pathway where I come through like a spiritual pathway. And
You come through a reasonable pathway, which which aggravates me.
right, but
Yeah.
there's a connective tissue.
Oh
there.
no,
That
you can
connective
reach it there
tissue-
through logic. You don't have to take crazy jumps.
But it's just funny how we end up to the same conclusions. And the connective
Where's the
tissue here-
sexiness? Where are the fallen
Where
angels,
is the
Jose?
sexiness, yes. The connective tissue is conspiracy. And so what can you explain a little bit like that process? What brings you from being someone who thinks they might be able to affect some change if they just play by the rules, and then all of a sudden to somebody who's like, no, the conspiracy side of things holds a lot more weight in this conversation than maybe I previously imagined.
I almost want to ask you to rephrase that because I don't know in what way you mean that because that's kind of a large question. Are you like meaning my whole story, how I came from, anyone who knows my tale, like fucking, like 5 or more years ago, I think when we started podcasting, me and you, Top, on Tower Gang, I still was active duty military at that time. So like, I even just in my personal life have taken very much a like change. So I don't know, I guess I'm trying to gauge what specifically you mean in this, or do you just mean how did I,
is
kind
it
of
a
an open-ended
matter of,
question.
let me ask you this. Is it a matter of learning these things, trying to implement them, realizing it's a shit show? Is it a matter of watching world events unfold on this, grand stage and seeing that things aren't really as kosher as, maybe people who are embedded in politics would claim that it is? Because I just think that it's your story kind of sounds like, and it also sounds a little bit like Top's story, where it's like, Top comes from all this like financial libertarian background, all this sort of political jargon, and then what makes a guy like Top then sit down with a guy like me and go, oh yeah, it's spirits.
Well, I've always been crazy. Shout out to Andrew Jacobs for $1 Tower Gang reunion. See us fucking Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday's going to be a banger episode.
It's gonna be
That's
fun,
going to
yeah.
be yeah,
Right after
guys.
the
I
election?
mean,
Yeah.
the entire world will have changed, and it's actually perfect for Tower Gang. Sorry to
yeah.
derail.
No, that's not. It's a good opportunity to mention to the people who are watching live that tomorrow we're going to do an all-day watch party of the election. So we're going to start it early. It's going to run all day. We might pop in and out from time to time because nobody can do a 20-hour stream and sit in the chair the entire time. Maybe they can, but there's something wrong with them. So if you guys are interested in sort of a Tower Gang NDS dissection or breakdown of the election as it goes on live, tune in tomorrow for that. Jose
And
mentioned
you
he'd be
could
joining
join-
occasionally if he could.
You can join our Patreon, and at pretty much any level. We start at $5 because I don't do $2 tier bullshit. But join the Patreon, and we're figuring out a feature where you could leave a voicemail to talk to us, to leave a question or whatever. We'll bring it up on the stage. You could scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner if you'd like. And yeah, I think it'll be like a 12-hour stream. We probably still won't even get to who wins the election because that'll take 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, I'm sure
I mean,
that'll
considering
be
it's going all day, I just had an idea. I know it's a little uncouth to talk logistics, but I know I'm
Okay,
doing my
I don't
own
respect
stream
the
tomorrow.
fans.
Yeah, I don't respect him either. But I was just thinking, considering, I mean, let's say Toad does a Better Off Dead tomorrow. Then also I have an Already Dead tomorrow. So I think, like you said before, you restream other shit. You guys could say for Already Dead, obviously you can do Toad's bullshit at some point just to give yourself a break. And then later we can do Already Dead, and then maybe have some of you guys come on as well. And that way it's like you're literally going on another show that's streaming your show. You know what I mean?
I
You
like
got
it.
multiple.
I like it.
Yeah,
I want the whole
yeah.
day to be like a big kind of creator swap back and forth. People can come
maybe.
and go.
That's an idea.
Is there a way to do this? Sorry, again, we're just talking logistics. Is there a way to do this where you log on to the Tower Gang thing and all of us stream at the same time to all of our channels, have designated times where you pick up, like you're going to do your show, we come in a little bit later, do our show, fucking switch it out. We don't know how this is going to work.
I think you could just so you watch other shows, so you could literally just say for my show, I could set it up like I normally do, and then all you got to do is screen share it, and then jump to the other one, and now it's going on both. There you go, multiple show roses. Yeah,
Multiple show roses. Holy shit, that's a banger. Good for you, Subliminal Messenger.
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe even fucking Donut, if you're still watching, get in on this, man.
Absolutely.
This would be fun.
that'd be good. Anyone who streams, that's the move.
Anybody
Anyone
who's
who
schizo and streams, that's the way to go. I would love to have that. We talked to Clint.
Yeah.
Clint said he'll have some time, so
Ooh,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Clint should do
Keep an
that
eye
too.
out
He
for
can
that.
do his own stream, so he can do it however he wants, his own vibe, but then you restream it from your channel as well.
Oh, this is good. They're saying Emily's saying that the Tower Gang slave that you guys have, we should make him keep the stream going. That would be great.
He's only enslaved on Wednesdays though, so I don't know. I might have to talk to him about that. So I mean, maybe we can get him to work it out. I don't know. So
So going back to that, the kind of the core of the question, which was, you know, what, what is it? I'm sure, Jose, it's more of a nuanced thing. There's probably an amalgamation of several of the things that we mentioned here. But when did you start? Because am I right in my assessment that it seems like you've moved more heavily to conspiracy and
Jose,
a little bit less on the politics?
He has, but you've always been you've always been in a sense, and I will bloviate your knowledge here, if that's even the correct word to use.
Go ahead and fillet me. Go ahead.
Yes, I'll fillet you. I'll hold the balls. You've been right about the whole thing. Even when I was with like the Mises Caucus and I was like, I'm going to give this shit the good old college try. Jose was like, listen, this is gay. I'm going to go over here and sell cats. And I was like, Jose's just a Debbie Downer. And he kind of is. He's like, I'm not going to drive to Georgia. I'm not going to go to Bohemian Grove. But you know how Jose is. But you were right.
To be able to affect the direction of this country.
Yes, he was 100% right the entire time. I guess we should have just been doing something else. I think the way you affect the change is doing some weird counterculture shit.
Which is what we ended up doing. As the Tower Gang show, we then started more making jokes, having fun. We've kind of, I know Toad likes to bring it back there, but we've kind of, in a sense, always been operating a way and we're past this. If we address it, it's because we're joking about it and like maybe to make a passing reference at best and moving on to something else. Like I think people get hyper focused on these niche things and it's an issue. I mean, so far as how I got to conspiracy, this world, I don't know. I mean, I got into theory world. It's almost like I'm building a skill tree. It's like I'm playing a video game and I build one skill and then I build off it into the other. Like I started as a fucking level 0 with nothing, like idiot, just fucking borderline NPC going through the world. You know, when my kids were young, I was, active duty military. Like I had some general kind of implanted beliefs by my family, like of like being sort of kind of right-ish kind of, while like the peer groups I grew around were a little bit like center left. So I had like a mixture of that, just kind of your generic neo-lib bullshit, maybe a little bit more right. And then, over time I started, what got me weirdly was having a long commute. Because I had a long commute to work. I had to drive an hour to work and an hour back. And so it's like, you can only listen to so much music. After a while, I just feel like it's like I can only NPC myself so much. Because that's kind of what you're doing. You're NPCing it when you're listening to music. And that's not bad. Sometimes it's bad to shut the brain off, let it cool off, reboot, all that. But after a while, you're like, you know what? I could be making use of this time. Like, I'll learn something. I'll find podcasts I find interesting, explore this thing, that thing. A lot of times, it's just comic books, shit I find interesting or whatever, and then just kind of build off from there. Then get into theory world. Eventually, get to Rogan, exploring different ideas, and then long story short, I end up at libertarianism. And then the funny thing is that's actually in the old part of the Palm group, and I think I was one of the people, in his inner group being like, you should run, like originally, like way back in the day. Hilarious now.
Part of the problem group is Dave Smith's Facebook group.
Yes, the inner circle way back in the day. That used to be like an elite group back when he was, I mean, I guess he was still pretty big, but not as big as he is now, like by any means.
He had the size that I have right now.
Yeah.
That's when we started. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I was okay, all right. That makes sense actually. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, I was a big follower of him. I was like, that's gonna work. I don't know, I just kept digging more and more into theory, and then I found different theory, read different things, got to a point where I was just kind of thought about social dynamics enough, and I'm like, I just don't know if this voting thing will work. Looked into different stuff, and then you just get to a point where you master theory, and then now I'm like finding real world examples of how awful this apparatus that rules above us is. So like you can see theory, and it'll like allow you to be like X plus Y equals Z, but it's hard to not like. It's hard to really imagine that. It's easier when you actually have specific examples. You're like, look at what these motherfuckers are doing, and it also then kind of opens your eyes to really how bad it is, because you are like, well, the government's inefficient and evil, and they do this and they do that. But then when you're like, there's literally groups that are like killing people for the benefit of some fucking elite group. Like, I mean, especially you can go really deep down this whole. Like I read a couple months ago, the Chicken Hawk, and was about like following child trafficking rings, kind of following the threads of that, and like there are almost certainly, it looks like there are multiple, like let's say the Long Island or Long Fox Island or North Fox Island. I don't know if you ever heard of that. There's like it was an island where it's like obviously it's all allegedly to some extent, but it seems like there's a lot to suggest these motherfuckers were legit like peddling children there. This is where you get some of the stories of the shit of like the kids running away, like in literal hunts and shit like that. Have you seen those like creepy paintings with them like?
I mean, that's a thing that Hollywood makes countless successful films out of, right?
Yeah.
It's
Pinocchio.
one of those things too, where you have to go like, damn, dude. Are they putting it in our entertainment because it's some revelation of the method shit, or is it as simple as like they put it in our entertainment so that when you imagine these things, you associate them with fantasy? It's like,
it's like a celebration.
They hunt kids. I saw that on fucking Netflix, dude.
It's a celebration of what they do, and they've been showing you since before Pinocchio, but Pinocchio was a huge one. What you just described there is that the island of the kids that they turn into, what are they? I forgot what they were turned into, like donkeys or something like that.
Oh, that's the Island of Forgotten Children. Wasn't that like Pinocchio? Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's very ominous stuff. But yeah, it's just part and parcel.
It's like that clip where he goes Pleasure Island. He's talking about taking
Pleasure
the kids
Island.
to Pleasure Island. Yeah.
Yeah. Dark shit.
It is, and it's. I want to ask you guys both a question, because you'll
refuse.
often hear me say on the show that I don't vote because at the highest level politics is theater, but I'm entirely open to the idea that I just am too retarded to grasp politics because it's convoluted and it's difficult to understand, and you have to read a lot. Everybody knows that I'm incapable of reading. And I wonder, from your perspective, when you hear somebody say that, does that resonate as being true, or is it a cop-out for not being able to understand something that is seemingly purposefully difficult to understand? Because I've gone back and forth with myself on that. I'm like, am I just fucking lying to people? Because I have like, when you dabble in conspiracy, you sort of circle these wagons, politics or spirituality or, whatever the case may be. And politics has always been on the table, but it's something that every time I try to look into, I just get the overwhelming feeling that it's bullshit. But once again, very open to the idea that maybe I'm just retarded.
I think it depends on what you mean by that. If you're talking like actually understanding theory, I think there is benefit to that. And I do think people instinctually sometimes don't or know this stuff without having read the book or whatever. It's kind of like the idea of like, if you've heard of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I've read that book. And I would suggest it to other people that may struggle with social situations. But there's a lot of people that just know, like, well, I'm a fucking human being. And like, I've interacted with humans before. And I kind of get this whole like, don't be dicks to each other and get along. And like, I don't know, but like for an autist, like if at some point I probably give my youngest kid this, it'd be good to give her that book. So sometimes you can get by, you just innately know some theory, you just do. But now if you're talking like you could almost say bureaucratic or like day-to-day nonsense, like so-and-so said this person did that. Oh, well, now this is how, if you look at the executive branch, this many votes, you need a 60% plurality. Or like you get to a point where you're learning almost what I would say there is something too, where it's like there's like a investment cost to where if you're investing the time to learning about how the fucking some specific branch of the legislative branch works or something. It's like you're probably wasting your time. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. All you need to know is in the day they're gonna fuck you. Like, they're here to fuck you. Like, so it doesn't matter. Like, so you need, if anything, you can be starting like finding out what fuck things they did and maybe working backwards as opposed to figuring out the specifics of how this mechanism works. Like, once you understand things like incentives and you understand the incentives that are in place, it's like you don't need to know the minutia of the specific logistics of the apparatus, you know, of the leviathan that controls us. Like, it's like,
Clint.
yeah. I mean, yeah. And which, if you want to do that, cool. I mean, there's something to that, I guess, because it is like, to be real, I guess if I was put on some panel on Piers Morgan and they were talking specific day-to-day politics stuff, I'd probably end up looking pretty fucking stupid. And sometimes because they'd be like, "Oh no, you don't understand." Like, "Oh well, he's a senator, not a no, he's not this." Or like I wouldn't know these little nitnoid day-to-day things, but it's like, to me, it's like, well, I don't care. Like,
It's like, but they're all fucking kids though, right, Piers?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're like, "Oh,
yeah.
let's not get crazy now."
Beautiful,
Like,
Tom,
okay.
because the other day I'm leaving MMA and you know, there's like this older guy there whose name is also Dave. Shout out Dave. And he goes, "Hey, how was class today? I saw you did pretty good, but you haven't been here for a while." And I said, "It's amazing how bad your cardio suffers after taking off for like 2 weeks." And he goes, "Why'd you take off?" And I go, "Well, we had this event. What do you do?" "Well, I do a conspiracy show." And immediately the guy goes, "The thing about conspiracies is I work in logistics, and logistically, I can destroy every conspiracy theory out there." And I'm like, fantastic. This is great. As I'm like walking out of the door with my kid, trying to get in the car, I'm sweating my ass off. And he's still going on and on about these things. He walks me to my car, and he's literally, as I'm trying to do like all the body language of like getting in the car, he's still going off about, well, it's all about the money and it's all about incentive. And if I can't find the money and I can't find incentive, then I don't really believe in the conspiracy theory. And all I said was, I don't really deal in the numbers of conspiracy theories. I deal with the Epsteins of the world. And he went, I don't know about that one, and got in his car. And I went, the fuck do you mean you don't know
Yeah,
about
what does it even
that
mean?
one? Do you
But
not,
by
were
his
you not
logic, it's
there?
whatever uncritical or what. How do you even put that? Anything that dubious, he can go, well, that's dubious. And you're like, well, yeah, no shit.
That's literally the thing. Well, that's dubious. That's basically what he said to me. And then he went to get in his car, and I just said, that's interesting that, you know, somebody is so logistically impaired, you know, that you're burdened by the logistics of a thing so much that if you can't find the numbers involved with Epstein's Island, which, like, it's all there. It's very obvious. It's a blackmail operation. Why the fuck wouldn't you want to have that going on? Why wouldn't the intelligence agencies be into that sort of thing? But if you can't track the numbers yourself, then you dismiss that. And I go, that's bizarre. Were you not here in 2020? Do you not remember 2019? Do you not remember? It was a meme, motherfucker. So that's one of the things where, you know, sometimes my gut leads me towards the bigger picture and not so much of the logistical issues surrounding a conspiracy theory, because in so many ways people go, well, it's about the money, or it's about, you know, this and that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that we went into the Middle East for oil. We certainly didn't go in to liberate a people, right? I think there was other more esoteric reasons that we went into the Middle East, but that seemingly is lost on people. And I think that's probably got to be a weird place for you, Jose, because having embedded yourself so heavily in the political realm, you probably deal with a lot of characters like that. And when you get into that sort of a talk with them, like, I don't think we went there for oil, because everybody, well, okay, fine, we didn't go there for oil. We went to set up a permanent military presence in the Middle East. And it's like, I don't think it stops there either. You know, so I just wonder, do you run into that a lot, or is that something that you're still on the fence about?
Do I run into? I don't really, frankly, run into people that try to. I don't know. I guess I don't. I'm not really a debater. I'm more of a just like call you a faggot and move on kind of deal, guy. So, but generally speaking, if I do want to engage, I mean, me and Top have been in this this Twitter world for a long time together, and we Top's like more of like our how do I put it? Like if we had a team, like a Dungeons and Dragons, or not even Dungeons and Dragons, whatever game I'm thinking of, he'd be the guy just out there dealing damage, just fucking laying down cover fire. Whereas like I like to sit back and wait for my shots and just snipe. Like every now and then, like if I'm in some sort of situation where like, because this would only really happen in Twitter. In real life, I'm not gonna. If someone tries to argue with me, I'll be like, That's cool. Like, I don't care. I'll just go, you're right, and walk away. Like, I don't
Same,
care.
yeah.
Like what? You're just one person. Like, I'm dealing in aggregates. Like, unless you're someone that, like, I mean, even then, it's like, why? Like, what am I gonna? I'm getting one person. Like, I'm trying to go on with my day. Like, unless you're someone close to me, and even then, I probably don't. If you're close to me, it's like I'd rather just not. Like, why do we have to have this issue? Like, who cares?
I had an interesting back and forth with a family member. Because I'm dealing in aggregates, so on Twitter it behooves me to really shit on somebody on like the world stage. But on Facebook, if I'm shitting on somebody, most likely it's a friend or family member, and it's like a 1-to-1, and maybe a couple of my friends or family see this. But yeah, so I decided I was just on Twitter again. I was on Facebook, and my cousin was posting something about Trump. He's like, I can't believe these people like are. But he was saying, I can't believe they're voting for Kamala, and it's a fair sentiment to have, even though it's kind of blue pilled in its essence. But if you are voting for Kamala Harris, you're like, come on, guys, like you're enthusiastic about this, is like, pay attention a little bit. And my other cousin chimes in, and she's going off. Well, he said this about Puerto Rican people. So then I'm like, I'm gonna throw some gasoline on both of their pages, and I was just like, yeah, but Puerto Rico is kind of trash though. And I check back on it like a week later or so, and I see that she's answered me, and she's calling me a fascist, and she's calling me this and that, and saying like, you're ashamed of your Puerto Rican name. And I was like, no, I don't have like my full name on Facebook because people follow me, and I don't necessarily want them to know my government unless they, if they go and figure it out, fine. But I was like, what it is that I'm talking to a lot of people, and it brings me so much pleasure to know that my opinion has outweighed your stupid vote and your daughter's stupid vote. And I was like, just enjoy the next 4 years. I don't know if he'll win or not, but enjoy knowing that I've done this being extremely racist and hilarious online, when before I was arguing with you on a 1-to-1 basis and getting frustrated. Now I'm fucking laughing because I'm out there. I'm like, yo, I voted for Trump, and I don't know how many people see this and be like, hey, I think I'm going to go and vote for Trump too. And I just think that it's not really a vote for Trump. What I see it as is like I'm canceling out a vote for somebody else. And I take so much joy in that. It makes my dick hard. Like, just putting a monkey wrench in these people's, like, just vapid plans. They have no idea what they're doing, no idea what they're talking about, and you can't change their mind. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to go and change someone else's mind and really cancel out whatever you're doing here because you're an idiot. That's it.
I gotten to this point where I guess we kind of exist, or at least I do. I kind of exist in like an echo chamber. I've cultivated the things that I want to see on Twitter. I'm really only on Twitter.
I like echo chambers.
It's a lot of fun. And all my homies,
sounds cool as shit in there.
Pretty similar things to me. So when I see people echoing sentiments of like pro Kamala shit, I'm like, that's interesting. Where the fuck are you playing? Where are you hanging out? Because there's none of that in my echo chamber. Come over to my echo chamber. And one of the things that I saw just yesterday is my wife, she's going through TikTok, and she comes across a series of videos where the idea is it's a man on the street, and he's going to stop you and say, let's switch your outfit that you're wearing right now. He's going up to women. Let's switch your outfit, and you don't get to see your old outfit again. We're going to take it and remove it. So you're either going to keep moving in what you're wearing, or you're going to take the chance and give whatever outfit we give you. And you go, and my wife's interested to see what. So all of a sudden, it goes to the remaining 80% of the video, and it's just these women are, oh, by the way, who are you voting for? I'm voting for Kamala because she's going to fix the economy, and she's going to, I really care about women's rights, especially women's reproductive rights. And I'm kind of sitting there going, well, this bitch has been in office for 4 years, and we've got the worst fucking economy that we've ever had.
David, 1 second. Just hold that thought. I want everybody that's here on our Rumble channel to go ahead and check out No Way Jose's channel, because I see he has like 700 followers on here. There should be way more. Yeah. There's a lot of people here, so I just rated your channel. Guys, go over there really quickly. Hit the subscribe button if you like what you're hearing here, and go check out his shit. And then pop back or stay over there, whatever. Fucking chill out.
Raven, I will say hoes are mad. There's a lot of hoes voting for Kamala.
Big mad.
My wife's in a very heavy chick career field, and I just listened to an hour coming back home, driving her home for about all these bitches and how they're all mad.
It's brutal.
They're like, I can't kill babies. I
Yeah,
can't
dude,
kill
that's
babies.
That's exclusively the
I
issue
can't kill
here. It's
babies.
like, hey, we're on the brink of war, right? And Donald Trump, it's like, I believe he's likely the Antichrist, although I enjoy him very much.
Very much.
But this guy is saying, and I believe him, by the way.
Which
that
is
he
on
can
character
stop
for an
these
Antichrist. I
wars.
just want to add that, throw it out there.
What's that?
If there's an Antichrist, that's on character for him to be dope as shit.
Oh
Like,
yeah, he's super dope. He's
I mean,
hilarious.
just enjoy it, but just
I
know what
enjoy
it is.
watching him. Like, I know a lot of people didn't like his Rogan appearance, but I just found him like really personable. Like he just seemed cool to talk to. I don't know if that fucking mattered, but this guy claims that he can stop these wars, which I'm like, that's fucking pretty cool. That would be great, right? And women are like, nope, don't care about the wars. I want to be able to kill this baby. Are we going to be able to kill these babies or not? Because if we're not killing these babies, then I don't give a we're going for war 100%. And that's really like kind of the two main issues here, which is very strange. But I think my point is just that as she's watching these videos, and it's every time it's like, you want to switch these outfits? Yeah, bitch, let's switch these outfits. 20 minutes of pro-Kamala rhetoric, and then at the end it's like, you switched your outfit, you like it? Yeah. And then that's it. It moves on to the next one. And I'm realizing that this is the way, like TikTok and social media in general, is they've really weaponized this. So when a while ago, when there was a lot of pro-Kamala sentiment, when she did that debate against Donald Trump, and it was like she kind of almost did okay, and then all of a sudden the polls were showing that she was doing considerably well, and they were neck and neck for a while. Not only was that probably skewed and bullshit, but it was entirely created, if it was at all, if that sentiment did exist, by social media and just the perception that she's doing well. And I just think that's really strange how they did a great job of splitting the country down the middle, and we're living in these two separate echo chambers right now, which are, it's wild to watch.
Which one half is retarded and that half is the women. So,
dramatically retarded, and it is the women, dude. And it's like as much as it's like really funny to say repeal the 19th, it's also very important that we repeal the 19th.
When I was riding back with my wife or driving her back home today, at one point she was telling me one thing. She goes, oh, well, something Project 2025, and I immediately just couldn't help, and I just laughed because it's like the Project 2025 thing's like a meme basically at this point, where it's like Project 2025, Trump's gonna round up all the Puerto Ricans and put his dicks in their butts and make them eat frogs. It's like, it's just the dumbest shit. Like, it's like, where are you getting this shit from? Like, there's the first level of like, is it even actually in Project 2025? And then to what degree does Trump really actually in any way, real shape or form endorse Project 2025? Should I care if he does or not? Like, there's so many layers to this, but it's like the women just repeat this shit. And like, if you even ask them, like, what's Project 2025? They go, they're gonna take away our babies.
Yeah.
You're like,
Don't know what it is. One of the things that I've been harping on is like, this is what happens when both mother and father have to work because it's so hard to make ends meet. And what ends up happening is you come home and you're so beat that your wife just like plugs into Netflix and then gets all her ideologies from Netflix. It's just a propaganda machine that is aimed at women. And so when you look at women's entertainment, where do you get how does all the LGBTQ shit sneak its way into our culture? Well, it's mostly through women's entertainment. All the trans stuff, mostly through women's entertainment. Anti-racist, anti-homophobic, anti-misogynistic, mostly through women's entertainment. And then where does all the mischaracterization of men, especially white men, come from, where they're demonized and they're painted as... It comes from fucking like Netflix and shit, dude. So it's like, if you want to kick your feet up when you get home because you just worked a 60-hour work week, well, guess what? Netflix is going to pick up the slack, and they're going to feed your wife all the ideologies that she needs to go out into the world and espouse it. It's a bummer because psychologically speaking, they've realized that women are porous and also highly opinionated. So if you can inject your opinions into these women, they're going to go out into the fucking world and espouse it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can impregnate their holes and they'll conceive ideas. Yeah.
That's
It's actually an interesting statistic right now is like 54% of votes that are currently in right now for the American political election are women. 40-something% are men. And then there's like, whatever extra that they haven't determined the gender, I suppose. But it's kind of interesting that women seem to always follow this like weird, like when left to their own devices, there's always a weird death cult around women. Like you were saying, they don't really care about the war. They care about killing their own babies. And then when I look at some of these like satanic ritual events or just like these satanic cults, the higher up members of them are always witches. There are warlocks, which are men, but they're few and far between. It's mostly mothers of darkness, these women that are doing this. And Jose, I guess this might be a good segue into this topic that you were covering with that this satanic cult that was called 09A or something like that.
I just wanted. I was just thinking about that. I think there's something to, before we go to that. I just think there's something to that. I just think maybe women just don't truly understand violence. That was the only thing I could come to. Like, because for one, like an abortion, they usually try to make this like an abstract thing. Like it's not really, you're not really doing it yourself. You're outsourcing your violence. The same thing, like, and this is something outsourced to men. That throughout centuries they've outsourced violence to men. Like when it comes to war, women generally don't give a shit because
that way
like
they don't have to
I
have
feel
a
like
relationship with it, right?
yeah, to get women to, like, even my wife still, like she's pretty damn based for the most part. I mean, there's some things she sucks on, but like I still can't, like I can kind of have a long talk with her and get her to like admit all the things that are bad, say about the war machine or about like, you know, just the military in general or even being involved. But like at the end of the day, she's still like, I'll catch her say things sometimes where it's like you still default to that like position of like this good thing to do, this honorable thing. Like, and it's like it's like women brain where it's like they just abstractly are just like warriors, good, like because they just associate with masculinity, but they have no real actual intimate knowledge of violence. So it's like they don't really get to understand like, well, what does this really do in reality? They just see the abstract warrior class, that good. It's just, so it's not part of their world. So then to have them advise in any way on this world is kind of like, what the fuck is you doing, you know? Like,
I think a lot of it has to do with inherent weakness. And what I mean by that is like, we've talked about it a couple of times on the show. There's that really popular episode of Naked and Afraid where they split the men away from the women. The men go on one island, women go on another. And the men are having all these like moments of camaraderie and celebration. They catch a fish, big fucking celebration. They successfully build a hut, big celebration. They're just coming together. They're cooking meat on an open fire. They're laughing. They're having a good time. The women, as soon as shit got hard, which is fucking day one, they just start turning on each other. Well, who put you in charge? What do you mean? Why this? Why that? They're fucking crying. They're shaking in the rain. They don't know what to do. They've built nothing. They've caught nothing. They're starving. Women, if left to their own devices, will get beat down by life. And I swear to you, in a very primal situation, they'll turn to paganism. So back to Top's point about how in the church, women aren't allowed to have places of authority, which I used to look at that and I go, I wonder why. But much like he just pointed out, the contrast of that is like, well, look at the Church of Satan. They have the mothers of darkness. There are upper echelons of women that are in high positions of power, leadership roles, witches, right? Obviously, it's like, yeah, you hear about covens, but or warlocks or whatever, but mostly it's female covens, and it's because they lack in physical strength and ability to execute and build a civilization. So they literally do lean on the spiritual realm, and they often go fucking dark mode. And I mean, for people that don't believe that, you don't have to believe it to look at these organizations, whether it's the Church of Satan or otherwise, and find that they are very willing to have women in high positions of power. So it's like, you don't have to believe that they're locked into some spiritual shit, but just notice that one does it this way, and the stark contrast to that one does it the other way.
Yeah, there's also something, I don't think we should say that they're not comfortable with violence. I think that it's the contrary.
Violence. Like they outsource it.
They do outsource, yeah. So they're
not really intimate with the idea of it or what that actually means. It's just some sort of abstract idea that someone else takes care of for them.
But on the other hand, it's like I'd say that I am not comfortable with violence. I'm familiar with it, but I'm not comfortable with it. Women are unfamiliar with it, but they are comfortable with it. And maybe it's from like bleeding at such a young age. Like they see like they're in touch with this like this I don't know, this naturalistic side of human existence where there's like a lot of suffering for women, and they're seeing themselves bleed. They're seeing fucking eggs come out of themselves all the time. There's childbirth. Women are like in tune with that. Like my wife loves watching. Oh, Nancy's a great example. Nancy, one of our favorite contributors to all the shows. I don't know where this bitch finds these videos, but like she will show you the most gruesome. She sent me a video of a guy taking his. I sent it to you guys. He took his foreskin and they took like a pneumatic nail gun and blap, just nailed his dick to wood. And I'm like, why are you watching this? And she's like, they love this stuff. Girls love that. Dr. Pimple Popper, shit like that. They're comfortable with it. And that's a big difference. And we should really be looking at the female gender as something to be scared of.
Yeah.
Like, these people are unstable. They like
that's
blood.
The truth. It's like on Timeline Cleanse, we're watching a lot of gruesome videos, mostly submitted by women, and there's a tremendous amount of women in the chat. And I'm like, you guys, you just wouldn't think. I don't know, you wouldn't think that way. But this is a great question here from Def Not Xer, is who created Planned Parenthood, and he knows the answer to that, right? It's Margaret Sanger, who is a outspoken eugenicist. I believe she was also an outspoken advocate of Aleister Crowley, and not a big fan of the blacks, which coincidentally you'll find that the vast majority of people who are getting abortions happen to be of the black community. So Margaret Sanger just crushing. But that's one of those things that I'll bring up to women. It's like, oh, okay, you're very in tune with this idea of abortion and how necessary it is. But what about the bitch who whipped the idea up in the first place? Right? She was a eugenicist. She didn't like black folks. She ended up creating an organization whose number one clientele was black people, and they're literally deleting babies. I mean, she's crushing. She's batting 1,000. So what about that? And that's just like it's more of an emotional topic, not a logistical one. So I don't want to look at that. And I'm like, oh, that's a shame, because everything you start making decisions out of the direction of the country based off of emotion. That's how we end up here. It's like that's how they leveraged the votes that ended up making the southern border porous, is because of the what about the moms separated from the children? What about the children in the cages? How sad is that? And it's like that's an appeal to emotion, and then they do this over and over and over again. I swear, most of the sort of the legal decisions that got us to this place where we're being plagued by the LGBTQ community, and they're doing drag queen story. All this was we got here through appeals to emotion, and men aren't receptive to that shit. So we got here through women. I fucking hate them. No, I don't hate them.
Kill your wives.
Or at least just keep them chained in the basement where they can't worship fallen deities,
Oh, shit.
Do something about these bitches. What was that?
What the hell was that? I think it's
they were playing and one of them got too rough.
Oh yeah, I had to walk out. My kids they taught my dog a new neat trick where he can escape the cage that I put him in. So I'm like, that's fucking perfect. When I'm not around, you just have free roam of the house. So that's cool.
You know what? I do really get this though. Emily, one of the based females that watch the shows. I mean, yeah, evil comes through the women. It just seems that way, and I think it's a symptom of being vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, it's like you shouldn't make decisions out of fear. Women are making all their decisions out of fear, and that's why we're here over and over again.
But let me so let's just fucking circle back for a second, because I wanted to talk about this 09A thing. So first question, obviously, were there a lot of women involved in this? Because I know that the main case that I knew about was it was a guy.
I mean, there's been a bunch at this point. You're probably more meaning 764, although there is a connection between the two. The 09A is the Order of Nine Angles. That's like this larger entity. It's kind of they consider themselves satanic. There's like some Nazi type aesthetic to it as well. William Ramsey's done a lot of great work on them. They're digging into their ideology, which there's a lot to be said about that. But 764 is theoretically an offshoot off of 09A, which it's had multiple offshoots throughout its time existing. It's kind of almost in a sense, once you understand the ideology of what 09A is, that's kind of sort of part of what it's about, is kind of creating other things to some extent. So you have 764, which is mostly just it's kind of probably like preteen to young adult men that are part of, I guess you could call them essentially a satanic cult. There's definitely lots of imagery now. When you they've legit will get their people that their marks or whatever to cut themselves a lot of times with satanic stuff. So there is like trying to find out to what degree they believe this is kind of hard, but there is so much symbolism and the type of stuff they're doing is so dark that it's not really that much of a stretch. There's some sort of actual belief there. But what they're doing is they are, like I said, mostly young men. Or even children, young boys that are, and there's women in it as well, but it's the guys that are, what they're doing is they're hanging out in like, whether it's like Roblox or what, different group chats and Discords and wherever the fuck the kids hang out at. Well, just like
they're hanging out where kids are?
Yes, lots of places where kids are. So they're getting like, 9, 10, 11, 12, young teenage girls. I mean, I've seen some where they're like young adults, but mostly it is like, kids. Women that they're targeting. They're kind of developing relationships with them, and they're usually going to be like depressed type women. And what they do is they manipulate them. So a lot of times they hang out in like suicide group chats or Reddits or wherever. I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to tech stuff, so if I say something that sounds boomerish, it's because I am. But this is the kind of place they are lingering at. They're finding these people and then like especially like ones that are looking to hurt themselves, and they'll get them to hurt themselves usually, and they'll like be like, oh, why don't you record it for me? Like there's this weird twisted almost love story associated with like self-harm that goes along, and it spirals from there, because what happens is they'll be like, I want you to cut yourself for me or something, and like they'll be like, oh, cut my name into you or cut this symbol or whatever, and then they'll obviously get a picture. And now think about it. Let's say this is some 11, 12-year-old girl. Now this is, on the other end, is a dude that's probably 18, 19, 20, something like that, and he's got this photo. And now what he can do is now manipulate this woman with this photo that he has, and then it like kind of spirals out from there. So a lot of times it'll get sexual. There's even been examples where they've gotten them to hurt like their like household pets or stuff like just like weird dark stuff where they just keep getting to do worse and worse stuff. There's already been a couple cases, and the one you might be thinking of is where this guy, I believe this is one in Canada, which I actually think this was technically a different cult, but it was very much this similar thing. I think it's one of those things where something they kind of rebranded in a different area. It's the same thing though. And he like legit abducted a 12-year-old girl, but like kind of in this like abducted, obviously in a sense it was, I guess you could say it was consensual to the extent a 12-year-old can consent, but they can't, in the sense that it's like this romantic involvement, and got her to come along. She was later scared and didn't want it. I think she called the cops or something. But point being is like this motherfucker, some like I think 19-year-old dude abducted this 12-year-old, and I believe this is in Canada, and took her with him. And now this is this whole cult of people doing this stuff. Their whole thing is accelerationism, trying to do this sort of stuff. Obviously, to some, I would think it's like serving their own personal whims as well. These people. Now, how I say they're associated with O9A, it's a lot of the symbolism. And kind of the idea of O9A is accelerationism. Like their big thing is trying to push things. That this is like in their doctrine. This is like the level above 764 that 764 spurned off of, and their whole thing is to accelerate. So they've supposedly you'll see stories sometimes where they say they've infiltrated like, I don't know, January 6th things or this group chat or that, where a lot of times they'll be the guys that are like being aggressively like racist, not in the fun way we're talking, but in like a Patriot Front kind of way or something like that. Like these, so it makes sense that they would have connections to 764. Now, the individuals who typically you find in O9A don't fit the profile of 764, but I wouldn't, personally, I'm of this suspicion that they, to some extent, probably fostered the creation of it in some way. Now, it's kind of hard to see how, aside from the symbolism, but they're typically different demographics that are in both. The O9A ones are going to be your spooky older people who are sitting behind the scenes trying to move shit. It's weird. If you go down the O9A rabbit hole, it gets really fucking weird. There's like one of the founding members was like legit in Gladio, which is like Operation Gladio was it. So he looks like pretty spooky in the sense of like might be glowed up, maybe some government connections possibly. I mean, as I said, Gladio. Now, I mean, you never know. Maybe he got out of Gladio and just went fucking private, and this is what he did. Who knows? Maybe this is an offshoot of Gladio. That's what a lot of people that hang out in my realm kind of imagine. How did Gladio it unfold elsewhere. I think this 09A to 764, I think there's a through line to be made there that at the very least, you may not say it's still a controlled op by the government, but I think it at the very least is something that snowballed off of it, like at the very least. So, and I'm a little bit schizo to the point that I think there might be more control than people want to admit there in some place. So I know that's a lot to be thrown in it. I'm not the expert on this. There are other people, so I'm kind of scattershot throwing it out there. These are all things you can look into. I've covered on my show to get the deets if you're interested. But yeah, these are the thing. There are receipts to these things to be had, and I'm not just. This isn't unfounded stuff. So like, you can see how quickly this, like, as I went up levels, got darker and darker to the point now we're talking about Operation Gladio, which is legit like a United Nations like fucking kill squad type thing with the association of the CIA. Like, they were over in Italy fucking false flagging Communist Party, which a lot of times you'll hear like the right people be like, hell yeah, you're killing commies, but you're like, okay, but like what happens after that?
Right.
You know, like what are you doing
Idle
after
hands,
that?
Right.
Yeah,
Idle
and even
and sort of useful hands.
Yeah.
To your point, where you're saying
They
you don't
bring that
know,
here.
Yeah.
If you
Exactly.
don't know how much they're tied into the government or still being a federal asset or things of that nature, I think that sort of thing is fluid in the sense that like there are times where they're more useful and times where they're not so useful, times where they probably really let the leash go and let them do their thing. But if they have a good purpose for them, they'll reel them in a bit. I do think
But
it's
real
interesting.
quick, Soul
Go ahead.
Explorer says
Yeah.
Gladio is all about increasing the tension, which is kind of like an interesting through line to be said here through each one of these separate things. If you go from Gladio, which is like the top level, when then you go to 09A, like then obviously now it's called accelerationism, and that's what they're calling it within their, and then like call it something else, like I believe aeonic change in their specific doctrine. And then you get to 764, it's more the ground level. What does that look like? So I mean, it is fundamentally, I guess this kind of goes earlier to our like theory talk before, in a sense, like, 764, 09A, Gladio, they all at their base level are kind of the same concept. Like they're trying to drive tension to get some sort of desired end result.
Yeah, I think.
What's
ahead, Tom.
aeonic change?
Aeonic change is like typically something, I believe I want to say that's the term they use in 09A. I might be wrong, but it's the concept of like a kind of, and this is something that you'll hear about. It's really similar to, sometimes you'll hear messianic, especially like Sabbatean type talk, like, which is essentially evil Jew stuff.
I was going to say this is very Jewish, but go on.
Yeah, Sabbateanism is something you should look into. You guys would fucking nut over this. But it's legit like a sect of Judaism that was at one point the largest sect of Judaism. And their whole thing is they believe that once the Messianic age had come, that essentially it flipped the law, and so what's good is bad, what's bad is good, and in order to whether there's different variations of this, whether you believe it's going to bring on the Messiah or bring on a new age or whatever, the whole idea is to do bad, to deceive, to undermine, to it's a flipping of the law, and this was what will drive your revelation to come about, like because you've driven enough aeonic change, or is kind of a similar concept. The idea of that we're going to create a huge shift that's going to have some sort of backlash that will end with what we want in the end is kind of the way to explain it, I guess.
That's exactly where I was going, though, because it's like you look at the instance of the red heifer, and it's like, well, why are they so concerned with finding this prophesied heifer, burning it, sanctifying the tools with the ashes, and building the third temple? It's accelerationism, right? But it's like accelerationism is a game, and there's levels to the game, and I think that these sort of rabbinic Jews are the major league players on this, and then when you have 09A or 764, high level amateur ball.
Well, they're doing it out. So 09A is doing it out in the open. Some of these
09A
Jews
is like
are
in between. 764, I guess you could even say, is out in the open somewhat, but 09A
Right, but
is
it's
very,
like this.
I mean, their
multifaceted-
message.
yeah.
Their message is
yeah.
directly at what they're trying to do. In my opinion, there's a sect of Jews, and it's not all Jews. Sorry, Dustin Nemos, but there are a sect of religious Jews that are doing they are getting at what we're talking about here, but they do it under the guise of Judaism or Talmudic Judaism or Kabbalism, whatever you like to call
Real
it.
quick, a fun little aside on O9A, and this kind of connects to Gladio, and this might connect some dots here, and this also connects to smiley face killers. Like, if you ever heard of that, like the concept of people being drowned and like in weird, and how like the numbers just don't match up, and it looks like people are being killed instead of like accidental drownings. Now, part of O9A's ideology is like essentially you have like differing levels and you have to do different things. And there comes within their ideology, and William Ramsey does a good job of covering this. There comes a certain point to where like they no longer have public facing like what's we're looking for doctrine essentially. And to get to the next level of doctrine, you have to perform something within their current doctrine, the public facing doctrine, and it's I believe I forget how they word it. If it's the OPFER, no 098 or 764 uses OPFER, but essentially the idea is it's heavily alluded
It's like
to
initiation.
Initiation is and it's implied. I mean, it's written in very esoteric language, but if you read it somewhat rationally, it sounds like literally a sacrifice, killing someone. And it's like almost in like a specific way, a perfect crime. And it's also like if you look into the smiley face killer, like the typical type of person who dies from these is it's a very strong. It's typically like the generic what people think of as the good, the all-American. So it's going to be usually the victims tend to be someone in college age, usually someone smart, someone handsome, like generally white, like just your standard all around what is considered wholesome, good, someone on the young in their life, like early, kind of like a nice young, like at the, their future's looking bright. They're like they're all the good, the generic, good people think of. And it seems to heavily imply that kind of sacrifice is what they're looking for. And they're trying to commit the perfect crime that they'll get away with. And it's also heavily looted. There's like water elements possibly. So the point being is that obviously you can connect that to Gladio initiation. What is the next level of this religion or theory or whatever we got going here? And does that not sound like the perfect way to continue on Gladio in the modern age or not?
A lot of people will say that, the ritualistic aspect, whether it's these murders or the imagery that's associated with these cults, that it's purely theatrical and that there's no real function to it. And they do it because some people will even cast it away as like being edgy. You look at sort of Epstein's Island, it's like there are two schools of thought when it comes to Epstein Island, unless you're the fucking dude from my gym, in which case logistically it doesn't check out. But mostly people accept that there was an island where elites and Hollywood actors and such engaged in the trafficking of children. Now, the other school of thought is all of that plus a ritualistic sacrifice element where there is a spiritual aspect to this entire thing. And a lot of people aren't willing to go there. But what's very interesting to me is that once you start digging, there are names associated with the spiritual entities. There are practices associated with the sacrifice that are ritualistic or ceremonial in nature that mirror the same names of entities from, times of the Old Testament, the same practices and ritualistic execution. And by execution, I mean like the way that they're executing the ceremony is to the T. It's to the book. And the book is, carrying on a tradition that's been going on since times of the Old Testament. So to me, it's become a lot easier once you get an overwhelming body of, albeit anecdotal evidence, it's still fucking evidence, because you'll never be able to prove definitively that on the island, because they filled in the subterranean levels with cement, you'll never be able to prove that they were definitely sacrificing children in a Greek-themed ceremony to a god called Moloch that's represented by the Owl of Minerva. You can't definitively prove that. However,
David, hold that thought, because we gotta play an ad, and I feel like we're about to get crazy because I have something written down here that it's gonna take Jose from rational to insane.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Quick ad, and we're gonna come right back.
Products that contain harmful chemicals, especially when it comes to skincare and hygiene. From fluoride in the toothpaste to aluminum in the deodorants, avoiding these products can become a full-time job. That's why we're excited to team up with the Van Man Company to bring our listeners a solution. The Van Man Company offers a range of incredible products, like their Miracle Tooth Powder, made from natural ingredients like peppermint oil, ancient sea salt, and baking soda. And the best part? It's 100% fluoride free. They even offer an aloe mouth rinse. Or how about their tallow and zinc sunscreen, made from ingredients like organic olive oil, organic beeswax, and 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef tallow. And there's more. With products like tallow and honey soap, coconut and magnesium deodorant, and peppermint beeswax lip balm, you can't go wrong. From head to toe, the Van Man has you covered. Listeners of this show can use promo code Nephilim at checkout to receive 10% their entire order at vanman.shop, or you can click on the link in the description below. That's promo code Nephilim, Nephilim, for 10% off your entire order at vanman.shop. From head to toe, the Van Man has you covered.
All right, yeah, good. And we also have some fucking Top Lobster shit there. So go buy some stuff. Ron Paul for Congress is back up. I am putting this back up. We're working on hats and stuff like that.
Go
buy
get
a cloak.
some cloaks before they
Get some
sell
cloaks.
out.
Get some other shit. Buy some shit. Yeah, workwear, whatever. Okay, back to
Well,
what
really
David was
quickly,
saying.
Before you,
Put
I
up
don't
a
want you to
Gladio
segue
hat.
yet. I just want to
Yes,
say that
yes.
At what point does, for me, it's very easy. I've had spiritual experiences that, depending on the crowd you're talking to, are not that fun to share because people are just completely unreceptive to the idea that you could see some shit that's not of this realm. So for me, it's very easy to look at that body of anecdotal evidence and go, yeah, nothing new under the sun, baby. They're doing the same shit to the same fallen entities. There is a spiritual realm, and they're literally not changing anything. So you could look at it as like theater or, whatever you want to reduce the occult aspect of these happenings to. You're welcome to do that. But at what point does it just become easier to go, oh, yeah, this was actually something they were talking about at the dawn of time. And we're still doing the same shit to this day. It's just for whatever reason, we're unreceptive to it. And I just think that is one of the big failings. And we bring it up constantly, but what's his name? Tucker Carlson just said that in the West we have a spiritual detachment. We don't understand the spiritual realm, and it's seemingly done on purpose. And I don't always agree with him, but I think I do on that one.
But to
These
get to the
guys
meta
do.
level, Tucker is also suspect as fuck.
Fuck
so,
yeah.
So it's like, to what extent, like, he's clicked up, his dad was CIA, like, back to William
don't
Ramsey
get it
mentioned
wrong,
earlier,
Jose.
he's in the Pilgrim Society. So I don't know to what, he says all the right stuff, but I don't know what degree I can and trust him. And like, I get what you mean, where a lot of people do point to people like me. I mean, obviously this is a boo part, but I am like an agnostic atheist or whatever. Like, and it is like, so the whole, like, whether there's a spiritual realm, they're doing this shit. I believe there is, satanic cults. I believe there's satanic ritual abuse going on. I think I have literally read, 302s and all sorts of different, like, reports and stuff of specific examples of this shit happening. But the problem is, it's like, I don't know. I am scratching from a different side of the veil. I'm glad there are people scratching it from the other, but it's like, to what degree, I do believe there are people that believe it. Now, what does that mean? Does that, like, and I do think there are these, like, mystery schools and stuff out there, but, like, once you get to this top level thing, to what degree is this meta and this whole ideology is usefulness to people? There's useful, there could be levels to this. They could have all these mystery schools and have these people believe all this shit, but the highest level, like, because it's all like information is power, we shield certain information. Who knows? Maybe once you get to 33rd degree Freemason, they're like, here's a secret. It's all bullshit. It's just all just control. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe it's all legit too. It does like drive me nuts because you're like, dude, they've got to believe it. Because it is to make me, like, at the very least, it's hard to believe that it's just spook shit because you're like, there's got to be at least belief there. And it's like, and either way, whether you believe it's real or not, there has got to be belief there. And so that is weird. Now you're like, what are their beliefs? Who is using this? And maybe there are those who believe and maybe it is real. And there are still people who just see it as a method to power. And they just know this is a game I have to play to get here, but they don't believe it. Maybe they get to a certain level where they go, well, fuck, I've seen some shit and now I do believe it. But there is such incredible dark shit they're doing at the very end of the day. We need to fucking deal with these people and address them. Now, I will say
Before
I'm
we
not
go
black-pilled
to-
and
go ahead.
thinking it's a problem that you really need to be too concerned with on your day-to-day life, but it is out there, and it should be exposed, and these are the people that control the mechanisms of power that do affect your life. But now I would be like, don't be too worried they're going to come and steal your kid, because as long as you got a good lock on things, you'll probably be all right. It's more the homeless kids or that are going to be the issue and
orphans,
shit like that.
right, in the system. Top, before you go off on your tangent, I just want to say very quickly that it is something, in my opinion, that people should look into as much as possible. We all have jobs and shit like that. We all have things to do, families to take care of. But that question of, is it real or is it something that they believe up until a point and it's a really effective control
Because
mechanism?
even if
at
it's
the
not
highest
real, it's
levels?
useful.
Well, if it is real, it changes everything.
That's the thing. Like, so their name, and I brought it up to Jose, and you're like, oh, that's like you're misunderstanding what I said. I didn't say angels, I said angles. But I mean, angles also have like a deep connotation, an esoteric connotation with angels and with, I mean, Freemasonry when you're talking about different levels of Satanism. Now, what does it have to do with angels? Everything. The fallen angels. This is why you have these paganistic roots to other cultures and other religions. It's because of the fallen angels. It's worship of them. But there's a documentary by Chad Riley. It's called Stranger Things of the Unseen Realm. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but I've heard him on a couple of podcasts, and he details the gods in this hierarchy. So obviously there's like Satan at the top, but in the hierarchy there are 9 other gods that sit at this table. And it's like, all right, so there's how many? 9 angels, 9 fallen angels there. And this is in the Vedic culture, the Egyptian culture. This is in the Mount Olympus, the Olympians, ancient Mesopotamia. And even Crowley has talked about Satan or Lucifer in his Council of 9. So these people know something. And it's like, if you wanted to scare somebody, I would go, yeah, exactly. 9 Sumerian. Yeah. It's just constantly recycled. Why is there 9? I don't know. 6 is an important number as well. But it's like, you're not trying to necessarily scare somebody because most people don't know this fact. They're not going to go deep dive into ancient mythology or history. So they're doing this as a symbol to something. And then you got to just wonder, it's like, well, why you put so much effort toward this symbolism that nobody's going to get, and these sacrifices that you're possibly making? They're getting something from it. They're receiving something. And we're just kind of freaked out.
That's what got me on the trail in the first place, because when I was younger, I would see all of these symbols through the music industry or, Hollywood. And that like really wet paper towel like coverage of, oh, well, the reason they're doing this is because it's edgy and it adds a level of mystique. So Jay-Z and Beyonce, to use some throwaway names, their music videos are filled with strange Masonic and satanic symbolism because it just adds a level of mystique. They're playing the game. And it's like, there's mostly people don't notice this at all. They don't see these things at all. So you're telling me that the reason they put these symbols in there is to catch retarded schizophrenics like myself, who, by the way, have no money. I'm burning your CDs, baby. I'm not buying them. So who is this for? This is for an incredibly niche audience. When you think about a music video set, the amount of money that people are getting paid on set to create this situation, also the fact that nothing there is accidentally. Every single thing that's been put there has been thought about by whoever's doing the set decor. It just makes you go, this doesn't make any sense. This is a money-making industry, right? What are you getting? What are your returns if you're putting a pentagram, all-seeing eye, goat head, whatever the hell in the back? It doesn't make any sense. And that was one of the things that I could never get past. And the more I looked into it, the more I said, oh, this is like heavily ingrained in the music industry. This is heavily ingrained in Hollywood. There's a concerted effort to constantly impregnate whatever you're watching with these esoteric symbols that the vast majority of people don't know what the fuck they mean. So this is for me? Because I'm the one that's paying them? It doesn't make any sense.
I would assume it's more like, if I was to take the skeptical, like my typical approach, or whatever. I would assume it's more of an in-group thing. It's almost a calling card. To bring it back to the Eye of the Chicken Hawk book I read, like in there they talk about like the PDF people. I'll say that for your channel, even though we said all sort of bad words today. They would put all sorts of weird coded messages and go through all sorts of lengths to symbols this or that to cloud their work. So I don't see why that couldn't be the same thing, but on a larger level. Essentially, a classified ads be like, hey, Jay-Z's for sale, like just to those interested, those that to whom it may concern type deal. And also I think there is some sort of like power aspect to doing it in front of you. I did want to bring up, I believe that was from this book as well. Maybe it was from something else. There's like there have been reports, I guess is a way to put it, of people that would essentially do unspeakable horrors, like SRA type stuff, and the use for it was for elites for contracts. Is essentially like, so I mean, obviously there's probably some sort of satanic element as well, but from a functional perspective, imagine if you are clicked up with some, I don't know, I'm trying to think of entities, but some large Globo Homo Corp and some other large Globo Homo Corp, they're fucking top dogs that run it, and they're trying to fucking orchestrate how we're going to do X, Y, and Z. What's the best way to secure a contract between these two to make sure there's going to be the utmost of loyalty between these two people? Like, to the extent of, I don't know, maybe you would go and stutter in a gravelly voice on Dave Smith's show for an hour and a half trying to justify the genocide of small brown children. I don't know. I mean, if that rings a bell, something like that, like some sort of really crazy dark thing you did once, that might keep you in line for whatever contract you may or may not have made. Like, the functionality of that is kind of, I know it is hard because I can see it from both sides. It's like, if it's real, and it all makes sense. But it's also like, even from the other side, just the belief that it's real has so much use in it, and like so much power is forged in the secrecy and the dark acts.
Well, Jose, I think you're spot on. You're directly over the target. It's like, yeah, you can control people. That's why these sexual blackmailing operations are so prevalent. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing with Diddy right now. It's a great way to control people. We talk about on the show all the time about how there is no such thing as organic culture. Anything that has any promise whatsoever is immediately co-opted by an intelligence agency. And, making culture is the name of the game. I think it's the most successful thing that the intelligence agencies have managed to pull off. If you can control the culture, then you can control the people. It's much more effective than even law and order. But I think that these things inherently go together, because it's my contention that there is dark spiritual entities and that they feed off of the energy that's associated with dark deeds. And it's really like, if you just think about it in a nuts and bolts kind of a way, it's like there is energy, right? What's the first law of thermodynamics? It's like you can't destroy or create energy. Everything just changes form and continues on. That was a retard's paraphrasing of it. But I think that that's very true. And I think that if you are doing something that has a high negative energetic charge to it, these things, they feed off of it. So I think that even if you set out to maybe create just an altruistic sexual blackmail scheme where there was no like dark entities involved, you're attracting them anyway. And it's only a matter of time until these things integrate in some way. And then that's why you always see at the highest levels, there is some sort of weird sexual blackmail op, child trafficking op that has these satanic elements. I don't think it's a mask that's fake that these things are wearing. I think it's a matter of attracting these things. These things are attracted to the deeper, darker emotions and energy that human beings can put off.
Yeah, I do think, once again, to kind of take it from my side a little bit, I do want to point out from an out-group perspective, there is something, and there's literally a term for this, that gets thrown around unthinkingly without anyone doing any, like, just throw this word out, and people go, think they have accomplished something. Satanic panic. People will say that. So from, like, say, a perspective of someone like me, you have now shrouded yourself in the absurd, is essentially what you have now done. So now for me to go, Marc Dutroux, the demon of Belgium, raped and murdered however many children and did X, Y, and Z, and was part of a satanic cult called, like the Hand of Abraxas or whatever, some nonsense, just sounds like the insane ramblings of a schizophrenic person to anyone else out there. But this is a real thing that happened. Like there are like extensive reports, all sorts of victims that made different claims. All just so many people who dropped dead. Like my big thing is like Terry Yeeke, the first responder for the Oklahoma City bombing, who just like got suicided. There was like something retarded, like over 20 of them in the Dutro case, and it's like, but this is real shit. But to try to tell this to any normie whatsoever, you have so many hurdles to get there, just because it's so fucking absurd to a normal person. The idea that anyone would do this, that anyone would fucking like that would do that to a child, or would believe that in some way this serves some sort of entity, and that this could be clicked up with other elites and blah 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 and part of some larger apparatus, is just bizarre and foreign to them, and they just see it and they go satanic panic.
Right. And I think right here to Soul Explorer Coaching's point, satanic panic has the same function as the word conspiracy theory. These, in my opinion, were just both terminologies that the intelligence agencies created to discredit anybody who was doing X, Y, and Z. You name your thing. It's the same thing that they attribute to anybody who says that there's something fishy about 9/11. It's like, that's what upsets me about it, is these words, satanic panic or conspiracy theory, are attached to real events that the vast majority of the population suspects something else really happened there, right? If we go back to 2020 and the whole lockdowns, there's a lot of conspiracies that go around there, but a lot of people are willing to accept those conspiracies, but they'll use the same terminology to dismiss something else, not recognizing that that is the point of the terminology. The point of it is to dismiss the ideas that are dissenting. Anything that goes against the government narrative or something like that is going to be labeled a conspiracy theory. And you have our Mockingbird media repeating those terminologies ad nauseum, but then people will use them in real conversation. It's like, and look, I'm guilty of it too. I use the word conspiracy theorist all the time. But we just failed to realize that, like, each time we do, some clever little Fed is just, they're probably dead by now, but they're going, there you go, another one in the bag for conspiracy theorists. Put another token in the jar.
No, 100%. Yeah, Eddie Grimm says Project 2025 will be putting all Satanists and crystals and relegating them to space. Hell yeah.
Let's launch them all. Launch them all into space.
Jose, was there in the OKC bombing? I remember like briefly hearing something about someone was in the building and they saw something. This is like in the supernatural sense of what happened there.
Right.
There are reports of people seeing angels or weird stuff. I know there's a photo of when they destroyed the Murrah Federal building, like after the bombing, to kind of knock it down. There was like a still photo. It looks like it weirdly kind of looks like a scream, like a woman screaming. There's some weird stuff like that. Tanya Yeeke would be, she was part of the people who helped collect, and it's also Terry's widow, the guy who died. But she also was part of helping. God, I can't remember the name of the book they put together, but it was like a photo album of all sorts of stuff. And there were lots of, was it Angels Over Oklahoma or something? I forget the specific title of it, but there she got into that a lot. That's so I don't know the specifics on that. I never really got too into that. But there were supposedly a lot of people who reported seeing things like angels and stuff, which I think that's kind of common from my understanding with any sort of like deep mass casualty event type things. Is that you do people, which makes sense even from my perspective, and that like there's some traumatic shit going on. It's not that crazy, but on the flip side, it's also like if you're spiritual, it makes sense too, because it's like some crazy spiritual shit's going on, dog. It's not that all crazy. You'd see some angels in that situation. So it is one of those things that's kind of hard. I can see it from both sides. This is why I never say I know there isn't a God. I just don't currently believe in one, just because.
Jose, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I was agnostic for the longest time. It's not until you have some shit happen to you. Well, no, I guess some people are information driven and they can get there through research. But even me, as someone who spent, I've been in this 18 years now, and I spent the vast majority of that time looking up the spiritual aspect specifically. So I came to conspiracy through basically sort of like the kind of the shadow people, sleep paralysis, hat man kind of angle, which brought me into the larger occult picture. And I spent a long time there just learning and learning and learning, and was never ready to define it in a way that I do now. And it wasn't until I had my own experience. So as somebody who was agnostic for over half my life, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying I don't know what this thing is until I have enough information. Like that's reasonable.
Yeah, I'm just not deluded enough to know I know the right one. Because even within Christianity, I see so many people have so many different. There's Gnostic Christians. There's like, oh, is this really all just an inverse? And it's like, oh, the fucking demiurge is fucked us over here, and no, God's the bad guy. And it's like, I don't know, like. By that logic, it's like, how do you really know the difference? At what way? How could you know whether the Gnostic take and we're like the God is actually the demiurge and the bad guy, and it's you're trying to escape it? Like, I don't know, plausible enough. Why not? Like, it's my point being is it's like I just almost feel like it's unknowable. So for me to like act like I know is ridiculous. And at that case, like I'm still in the spot where like I just struggle to believe in something. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a God. That's where I'm at, especially with all the evil shit I've looked into. I wouldn't be surprised if there are evil entities. I've done enough digging into, and then even on top of that, who knows? Maybe it's like I've gone down the conspiracy wormholes where you're like, well, maybe it's maybe there is Anunnaki aliens that are somehow, harvesting evil energy out of us. I don't fucking know. I mean, even then, that could be an atheistic take on it. And so like, maybe that's legit. I don't know. Maybe these evil entities are perfectly explainable, and like maybe we get to a point where like it's like I don't know what is really even the difference. I have no idea. That's just kind of the way I look at it. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll come to some sort of belief system, but just that's not where I'm at now. I just kind of keep my head open, I guess, a little bit. I don't know. And I don't have any problem with people who do. I'm way past the Reddit atheist phase. I couldn't care less. So,
well, you can't. You can't know what you don't. It's just that simple, dude. You can't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And I mean, what I will say is after getting to a place where like I still don't know shit, but I know the things that I do know, I've recognized that like, oh, this topic is incredibly important. And even if you don't believe it, right, Jose, it's like it bleeds into so many things that are very important.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously truth there. As we mentioned, the Sumerian shit, it clearly there is through lines like, like entomology that drives throughout all of it. So there's some sort of truth in there somewhere.
And that's all I can do is like, you chalk patterns, right? You're just data collecting and you're looking for patterns that repeat themselves. If they repeat themselves over large swaths of time, that's great. If they repeat themselves from one person's story to another, that helps as well. But all of this still is anecdotal. But what I do realize is like after crossing a certain point, I look back and I go, this pursuit is so much more important because I'm somebody who does believe in the spiritual aspect of things. I do think that we're constantly engaged in spiritual warfare. And the best thing you can do to your opponent in a war scenario is have them not even realize that they're engaged in war. That's the most advantageous thing.
The American right that's a great example of it, right? I mean, maybe up until about 4 or 5 years ago when we started doing what we were doing, Jose, the American right was completely asleep to the fact that the left, or at least his progressive left, wanted them dead. And this was in fact a war against them. And it's been a war for probably 150 to 100 years. There's been a slow march through the institutions that they've been outright about it. They want you dead. They want your children dead. And they think it's funny. And it's the same thing with the spiritual war. So like, we're not perceiving all this stuff going on around us. But for me, I know it's not going to convince you, and this isn't Tower Gang, so we could talk about this a little bit more. But for me, why I believe what I believe is because there is a book that I thought was nonsense, but upon further inspection, it seems to be a very good guide to what's been going on here. And there actually is proof and praxis that I've used, that David has used probably accidentally, to battle in this spiritual realm and kind of come out on top, or at least like win that certain battle that he was having there. I don't know if you wanted to tell that story quickly, but there's like time and time again that, throughout alien abduction stories or like sleep paralysis, demonic encounters, things like that, people use the name of Jesus and the shit stops right away. And then I go and I'm like, well, what books are written about Jesus? Like, all right, the Bible, let's read that a little bit more. Let's look into that. And it seems to be some truth in that. And the other doctrines that surround the Bible, whether it be from ancient Mesopotamia or the ancient Greek culture, they're all telling the same story. There's only one thing that is really different in these doctrines, and it's Jesus Christ. But then we can get into other denominations of Christianity, which do get, like, some of them get a little bit wacky. That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, they do tell similar stories when you look at other ones, but the problem is it may not. I know I'm not trying to get into a debate, especially because I think we're getting near the end. But I mean, I know my little bit of digging when you dig into like the older stuff, it doesn't. I mean, maybe if you take a nuanced view on Christianity, but I know like I couldn't really argue this well, but I know like if you dig into it, it looks like Elohim was one of many gods or whatever supposedly, and before that it was derived from like Sumerian gods, and so it's like you get to a point where you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could take some sort of weird nuance look on the Old Testament to then somehow make it make. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, if you're I guess at the end of the day, as long as you come to the Jesus thing, you can kind of like brush away the other shit. But like,
well, it doesn't even have to be brushed away. It's just a matter of understanding it. I have a book here by Gary Wayne that talks about the Genesis 6 conspiracy. Elohim is a terminology that is used to describe God, but also the angels.
It's a classification of what they are. They're like spiritual entities. So there is God, and then there are the angels that he's created underneath him. That's why the first commandment.
Maybe it was Robert Sepper, I think, might have covered, or someone did. And I was watching something where
we were meant to talk to Sepper.
Yeah, Sepper's great. You should talk to him, because especially something like this. I don't believe he believes like the same way you do, but he's dug into this stuff. So I think there was like even supposedly like Elohim supposedly had like a wife deity at one point, supposedly in the early Sumerian. Like, so it just seemed like he was one of many. Like, I mean,
Lilith.
maybe that could just be a was it Lilith? Was Lilith? I don't think Lilith was it. Was it?
Well, it seems like there's extra canonical Jewish texts that.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about like if you legit look in the area, like where the origins of like early Israelites and the like, you start looking into the area, like Elohim was like an older god that seemed to come from some previous pantheon of gods. Sepper does good work on this. I can't really talk on this. I'm just talking on my ass. But point being is, it's like I don't even know if it really. I guess it depends on what your take on it is. But like, just the more I dig into it, it's not as clear. I do believe they all connect on each other, and there's through lines and all of it. But it may not be exactly what the Muslims believe, what the Christians believe, I think there might be some different take, and there's like a through line between all of them. And I don't mean there's some woo-woo new world bullshit. I mean more if you just follow the roots of these religions and where they come from, there might be a different story that's being told than what they think's being told. But I
think that is fair, but I think that what people are neglecting is that the Bible actually has a lot more to say on this topic than truncated Christianity has given us over the years.
This is the issue.
Yeah, it is in the book, but there's been
what
a
you've seen in the church.
Yeah,
what I've seen in the church, what you've seen because I know Jose, you went to church at some point.
I went to church all growing up, and I went to Christian school, everything. Yeah, so
it's a bastardized version of of what is actually going on in this book. I mean, it's fascinating, especially the Old Testament. When you look at it, like the most important thing, and they miss it constantly. It was like they say the Nephilim were on the earth in these days and also after, and that's it. And that's just like taken for granted. Then the rest of the Bible, we're talking about Jesus talking to a dog-faced woman. We're talking about Esau covered in hair, giving up his birthright. And I mean, it's a insane book. And then when you reference it with other extra canonical books and even other religions, you're like, holy shit, there's a lot of overlap here. But the Christians and the modern Christian church just kind of brush over these things as like, don't worry about that. Just pray to Jesus. Don't worry about all this other stuff. And it's like, no,
real quick, I want to correct the chat. Sorry, real quick. The chat corrected me. I was referring to, I believe, Yahweh, not Elohim. Because even then, within those different terms, I think there's different meanings, and they may have driven from a different god here. I am completely talking my ass. Someone pointed out in the chat. I am talking my ass. I admitted I'm talking my ass. But point being is, I just don't think it's as clear as at the very least, modern Christianity likes to make it out like, oh, here's your story, the Old Testament. You're like, okay, well, what the fuck does this mean?
Yeah, tell the chat, take it easy. Listen, Jose's expertise is in things like he said, like this political, geopolitical conspiracy. So if we were to just do it, me and David to do an episode on Operation Gladio or the OKC bombing, we'd be talking out of our ass. We're talking here, we're trying to figure stuff out. You're never going to learn, like, we've done hours and hours and hours of conversation talking to experts about these specific subjects. So we know a lot of stuff. We're probably bad at regurgitating it, but just take it easy. We're just having a conversation here, and then we'll say nigger on the next show.
Fuck you, chat.
That's right.
Yeah,
to
fuck
that
you.
point, though,
pay us money.
I think it's very important to learn this stuff right now. And the reason why I say it's very important to learn this stuff right now is because they're about to roll some shit out on you. Every year, they nudge us a little bit closer to UFO disclosure. Every year, there's a new finding by NASA. There's a new meeting that happens on C-SPAN. Whatever the
Every
hell
6
it is.
months, they're turning on this large hadron collider to fucking summon entities from a different
Yes,
realm.
and it's like
No big deal.
they're getting ready to. If you have a healthy distrust for the government, well, they're about to start telling you information of a spiritual nature. You know, Tucker Carlson is telling you that these UFOs, there's a spiritual aspect to it. Listen to me right fucking now, because we're talking to a lot of your audience too. It's like, you may not think that there's any validity to this shit. They are about to indoctrinate you on something. They're about to tell you what these are, what their purpose is, what their plans are. If you are unarmed in regards to information, then just like on a topic where they would tell you something political and you'd go, well, I have knowledge on that. That's not true. Or they're going to tell you something, about the military. Well, that's not true. I have knowledge on that. You'd better have some fucking knowledge on this, because they're about to sell you a big bag.
And
dude.
let's just lay this out there, because I know some of your audience will know about Aleister Crowley. That ties into NASA. That ties into Scientology. It ties into everything, this guy. But specifically, he's in the desert and he channels an entity. I think it was like a moonchild. He calls it Lamb, or it's a star child.
I think Lamb is one of the entities he actually. The motherfuckers let him into the Great Pyramid, and that's
It's either
where he-
AWAS or Lamb.
Yeah,
They're like
AWAS.
two separate
Well, there's two
entities. I think
different ones.
Lamb is the Lamb's the weird like gray-headed face.
Yes.
I think Lamb.
Yes.
And
So-
then the AWAS is some other entity you talk to. I think.
That one there, Lamb, with the that looks like an alien gray. He just goes on to say like, people will call them. These guys are demons, but people will call them something else. They'll just be rebranded. You'll know them by a different name. And now we know they're aliens. So when this stuff happens, whether it be aliens or whatever, and I have a feeling it's going to happen from the election tomorrow all the way until January 20th or whenever the inauguration is, it's either that time frame or just right after. Because we're living in a weird shift. Like we're talking the day before the shift. I have a feeling the shift will happen tomorrow. Whether she wins, he wins, whatever. Something fucking weird's about to go down. So like, even if you don't believe it, be on your guard. Yeah, have this side knowledge and be like, I
would just like to throw it out there. Anything alien related and some research related, you should, if there's any realm whatsoever in the conspiracy world that you should put the largest grain of salt of any information you get, it's the alien sphere. Like, that has been so thoroughly butt fucked by feds for decades and decades and decades and decades. Like, there's a story of, I believe the fed's name was Richard Doty, and there was another fed that literally drove a guy to suicide by feeding him false information and setting up all sorts of weird pranks to make him think that, like, oh, this was some sort of alien something or other, and that then put out all sorts of false information. And this is just one of many jobs. The idea of the Men in Black, I am of the opinion that we were talking about, like, how they put stuff in, like, media and stuff. It's like, I think that was more of like an obfuscation thing. And like, oh, Men in Black were a real thing. Like, there were feds out there that would insert misinformation, would be even open, like, we're feds and we're bringing you this information from the government and here you go spread it. And it was intentionally, or they're doing all sorts of ways they can to fuck with information in that realm. They just are. And I wish it wasn't that way. It'd be cool if, like, we could get legit information, but it's like, it is so thoroughly just fucked in that realm that it's just like, you better just take everything. Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Why? Now, people
this
would,
out, though.
the rational reason would be like, oh, they're testing this or that, but it's like, they put a lot of effort into this. I don't know, maybe they're just having fun. One theory I like is just that they're like, it was such an unserious realm and they were let to go free. They were just like, we're going to have fun with this. Maybe. I don't know. I could see that, like,
Well, okay,
who's
look,
going to believe the
this
crazy UFO people?
This is my thing with it, and I think you're right, Jose, when it's like, take what they say with a grain of salt, right? Because it has been obfuscated and fucked with. It's an operation, right? It's a psychological operation. We call everything a psyop. This is a psyop. That being said, there's a really high chance that this becomes integral to the human experience from now on. This could potentially change, and I'm not trying to be like Independence Day, this could change everything, but there's a fucking chance that it might. And if you take the topic itself with a grain of salt, then you're going to be entirely unarmed. And there's a chance here that these are ancient adversarial entities that hate humanity. And if that chance is a reality at all, then you need to take the topic very seriously, because there is a very good chance, very soon in the future, they're going to be integrating this into sort of the realm of awareness of the human experience, and this is going to become integral. This could potentially change the direction of everything in the future. And it all hinges on, are these our benevolent space brothers who have come to stop us from mutually assured destruction and also stop us from destroying the planet, in pollution and all these other things, and take our seat amongst the Galactic Federation, which so many fucking people believe? Or is it strictly a nuts and bolt government operation that might not even have anything to do with reverse engineering recovered crafts? Maybe it's just black ops craft that they've been creating, or is it something way fucking worse? They're going to try to tell you what it is, and I don't know about you guys, but they do a lot of lying. Like, on a really high level, they do a lot of lying. So are we just going to let them control the narrative on this, or are we going to do our fucking research? Because a lot of people say, well, you can't know. All right, fuck it. You can't know then, dude. Don't even try.
That's like a solipsistic view on the world, and I get it. We're in like a post-reality world, but the idea that you just can't know, and to some extent that is always going to be true, no matter what. In a certain theory sense, we could literally be brains in a vat that have no idea what's going on. In a ultimate sense, you can never know what is. But you can have degrees of certainty, and you can find ways to better operate within your world. So, I mean, yes, I do think everyone needs to keep their head on the swivel. Don't immediately believe anything the government tells you. But on the flip side also, and I would say be a little less guard against this, because generally speaking, if you do, just knee-jerk, don't believe in them, you tend to be better. But also don't just knee-jerk take the other side. Learn to be able to parse through information. Learn the people you should be paying attention to at the very least. Just don't take anything at face value, and get good at finding sources, ways to parse information. I mean, you could almost do a whole podcast on how you go about deciphering information, but then there are better and worse ways to do it. We might even disagree on that, but even then, we're probably within the better sphere of it than most people are, which is just CNN said, and I saw an article, Project 2025 is gonna make you carry rape babies, shit, you know what I mean? Most people don't really put any sort of thought into it. So, I mean, just start putting thought in how you collect your information. I don't really know. I mean, that's the best way you can guard yourself. Or just don't believe anything and just carry on with your life and keep making that bread and keep your family safe and
keep
happy.
breeding cats, baby boy.
Yeah, boy.
Fucking bang, yo. That's a perfect place to wrap it for now. And we'll obviously got to have you back on and to bullshit, but great episode. I think that the chat liked it. This is a fucking banger. Tell them again where they can find you if they don't know. If you're not watching Tower Gang, you don't know who Jose is, the fuck are you guys doing? But go ahead.
I have the No Way Jose podcast. I kind of do three main things. They're all under the banner. I mean, aside from Tower Gang. I do three main things that are under the banner of No Way Jose. I have my normal No Way Jose episodes, which usually be like a topic-driven thing. Those get put behind the paywall, come out a week later. I have my weekly live stream on Tuesdays, which will be tomorrow. You can see there, Already Dead. I do that with my buddy Austin Picard. He is the shit. He is way more knowledgeable than I am. But every week, me and him kind of just do like a variety show, and also the second half's a call-in. So we just kind of go over whatever, topical things are going on or whatever old thing we're spurging on. And then I've been doing probably 3+ times a week. I'm doing the morning dump, which is kind of usually around like 10 in the morning Eastern time. I do a live stream with you guys. You guys pop in, talk to the chat. I'll read whatever articles and different things. It's literally like the morning dump. Imagine you're sitting on the toilet with a newspaper. You're kind of reading over the articles of the day. That's what we're doing. It's stuff I haven't even read through. I'm going over it with you. We're going over it together. But it's stuff kind of like things I've covered now. Might be some funny stories here and there, but I legit will read the articles to you. That way on your morning drive or whatever, you can get your information of the day. Just whatever. It's usually whatever I've just saved in my bookmarks. So just whatever things I find interesting. So if you find the things I find interesting,
audiobooks with a lisp. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Audiobooks with a lisp. That's the tagline for that show now. Follow me on Twitter at TowerGangJose. Check out my OKC coverage. That's what everyone talks about the most. I have something like over 20 hours or somewhere in that realm of OKC content, like a whole fucking big ass series, and I've done a lot on it. But I'm sure that's probably what we'll talk about more next time. You just hit me up last minute today, and I was like, I'm not ready to do a full-on episode on just OKC, and so we just kind of shot the shit. So,
by the way, thank you, though, for hopping in. I really appreciate
no problem.
it. This ended up being a great show, and I do enjoy already dead, and you and Austin have like a great thing going. It's a great show, so people should definitely go and check that out. But thank you, brother. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. And before we head out, again, find us at patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Become a member at any level. We're giving things away. There's a lot of cool perks here. My cousin just walked in the door. I'm working on some 3D modeling stuff and some laser engraved stuff that I want to do for giveaways if we can get that ready. And also, of course, go to toplobster.com. I have new merch. I'm going to be dropping even more new merch probably today. I have a fucking dope design. It's kind of old. I did it a long time ago. Forgot I did it, and I'm going to release it, and we'll check it out. But again, thank you guys for being here. And Jose, thank you for fucking bailing us out.
No problem, man. Anytime.
We'll see you guys on the flip side. Let me find the fucking outro video. There it is. Peace out.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.